Now, there's a brother down, when I go and speak down in Indianapolis, the brother was saying that they got these Jews, and every time the sister will put anything historical origins of the Jewish or the African origins of the Jews, they get some white people to go up in there and buy all the copies. The Jews will send their own people up in there to buy all the copies, so that they don't want the rest of the people in the area to get this particular information. So this book, The Invention of Ancient Israel, it says that this is what they're doing to authenticate themselves. And remember I said the last time that I was here that they didn't even, before World War II, the prophecy in Psalms of a people that would suffer only lined up with the slave in the diaspora of black descent. Up until after World War II, they became the suffering people. You see, and that was all made, and it was all planned by the Jewish head of state that put Hitler up in there to do that. Say, well, we're going to allow the German Jew to go through the Holocaust. You see what I'm saying? So it can authenticate us in the history. So they do the same thing throughout history, and the whole Greek thing, which you see the white statues and all, is all black. You see what I'm saying? Which they did about 100 years ago. You see. Now, so something else I wanted to deal with is a brother by the name of, you know, when they had the Afrocentric movement was pumping up recently in the early 90s, late 80s, they had those Negro people that the white people would go and get these Negro scholars, and they would come up, you know, they pay them to come up and talk junk. And why you all want to say that you all Egyptian? We are from West Africa. We're not Egyptians, we're from West Africa. This is what the Negroes were saying, you know, in the argument. There was a brother by the name of Theodore Ford. Theodore Ford that wrote a book called God Wills the Negro. He wrote the book in 1939. He went to the University of Chicago and he studied Egyptology. Black brother. I mean a brother. And he wrote the book God Wills the Negro. Theodore P. Ford. Anyway, the book stayed out about 2 years, but you know how it is. You know, back then, hell, we probably, if we didn't read, we couldn't read. You know, I mean, we had a lot of people, although we did have a scholarly community, but then again, you know what I'm saying, that was not the type of stuff that we was into. Hell, we didn't get into this until recently anyway. So therefore, the book stayed out about 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years, and then the government came in and confiscated all of them. And the only people ended up with a certain amount of books was a few people that was in the area of Chicago. You know, and I found the book because a brother gave me a beautifully preserved copy back in I think a couple of months after I left here, and I think in May. And the reason why they confiscated the book was this. Apparently this guy had done research and had found out a certain amount of information, and it makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm going to give you the information on what went down. When you had your last invasion of Egypt or Kemet, where you had your Arab invasion, you had large clusters of Egyptians that left by the thousands, and they migrated over to West Africa, maybe by the millions. You know, and the other ones got pushed on down in Nubia. You see what I'm saying? Pushed on down in Nubia. Now, you know they buried 200 temples up under the Aswan Dam because they found Hebrew writings up in them shits. They found just about all Hebrew, Greek, and all that stuff that the Egyptians was doing, and they showed that the origins of all that stuff came from one single library. You see what I'm saying? Plus all your Typhonian stuff, which is your pre-dynastic stuff, which really gets into some stuff, and the stuff I'm going to deal with the next 2 days. They didn't want the people to understand that stuff, so basically they covered over those particular temples. 200 temples. Even Dr. Ben talked about it in 91. 200 temples. Now, you know the white man don't cover up shit. He want to know everything. But basically they took them, basically what they did is they worked for maybe 100 years between the time of Napoleon. They just went and Just copy everything off of the temple walls. They don't have to decipher it. Just make sure you get everything. And they copied all of them. Once they got it all copied, you see.
There's one down.
Then they ask one down. They cover it over. So anyway, some of them got pushed back into Nubia. The other ones had a large migration over into West Africa. Now, the scene shifts to the time of the slave trade. Now, two aspects. Number one, the slavers is coming up in there, the Arabs as well as the white boys or whatever, Portuguese or whatever. Now, two things happening. Remember, these particular people, Africans, because they don't know but one color. So what distinguishes you is your particular civilization or your tribe or whatever, or your nation. You see what I'm saying? So now the slavers are coming in. The king has to make a choice. He is bound by law to look out for the people that he is ruling over, or his kingdom. You see what I'm saying? So if you're going to choose who's going to go get on the slave boats, you best believe I'm going to try to hook up my homeboys to stay. So therefore, the Egyptians or the Canaanites being homeless, because they didn't have a home because their home was in Egypt. So they had thousands of these homeless people settling in the area, which they had several migrations. They came during the time of the Dogon, you know, and the whole thing with Timbuktu and all that type of stuff. So basically what they did is the Africans, the West Africans gave up the Egyptians. And so your major influx of people that came to the West are the Egyptians. So that's why when you look at them fucking hieroglyphics, something happens to your ass. You remembering your own self when you were living in Kemet. The other thing is based on his stuff is because the Canaanites was a very advanced people and sophisticated people. They had some other brothers and sisters over on the other part of the planet or continent that got jealous of them. And that also added into putting them on the slave ships. Either way, this brother's scholarship must have was accurate. It must have was the same scholarship that the Europeans came up with and came to the conclusion, because if it was false, they wouldn't have came and confiscated all the books. See what I'm saying? So obviously the brother was on point. You see what I'm saying? Which also breaks this thing down to who we are, and we'll get into some other information based on the whole Camelot thing. We'll get into some of that particular information in a few minutes too. But I wanted to put that particular information out. The book is called, it's called God Wills the Negro by Theodore Ford. Now, if you can't get a copy of it, I do have a nicely preserved copy that won't take anything. I didn't bring it with me, but I have to just ship it back up to Brother Tiba, and basically you can get a copy if you want to, you know, however you want to do this particular thing. Just want to get into a couple of things, you know, before we deal with this thing. Go get the movie Johnny 2.0. The movie Johnny 2.0. Because this movie is going to be dealing with cloning. But the movie is going to show, in the movie, it's going to specifically show that the clone does not suspect itself to be the clone. You see. And so get the movie and all, you know, this, the guy who was dealing with the genetic engineering himself, who was Johnny, literally got hit in the head. And when he woke up in the hospital room, he come to find out that it was his clone. His clone actually woke up, and the real Johnny was still living. But he had like gone off freelance and was on the run, and they had to activate his clone after 20 years to try to track him down, because the clone would know who he was. So the clone basically would have the same type of thoughts on how to track him. But basically the clone actually thought that he had woken, he was awakened from the night he was knocked out, which just so happened to be the real person got knocked out or got hit in the head 20 years before. So it basically shows that the clone does not suspect itself to be the clone, which also goes to this particular information that there was this sister down in Atlanta was talking to me about 2 months ago, and she was saying she has a cousin, And the actual cousin came and told her he was in prison. And he said, you know, they came and got me one night. And she said, well, what did they do? She said, I don't know, there's a bunch of white men showed up at my cell, and they came and got me. She said, you know what happened? She said, all I know is I ended up back in my cell the next day. So in so many words, this clone that's talking to her didn't suspect himself to be a clone, but the original host was killed. You see what I'm saying? So that's very key. Like they said, please stay out of the prisons. Also, too, one of the key things, and they're going to be doing this a lot to the so-called upward mobile is, and some of you might know this and they might convince you to this bullshit, that basically if you're working on a job, that basically they can preserve whatever drugs or whatever you own. It's best that you give you a strand of your hair other than your damn urine. Don't give nobody your damn hair. Because that means if you're giving somebody your hair, it's more than likely, like the old people say, your ass wake up dead. And somebody else be in your house look like you cooking the dinner and screwing your husband. See what I'm saying? So don't give nobody your hair and all that. So this is going to be mandatory. Very big that's going down in the next couple of months, years, or whatever. So they're going to convince all the Negroes, but then again, we don't have to worry about it because we already know that black people are going to do what the damn white man say anyway. You see what I'm saying? But that's one of the keys. Don't give anybody your hair. So some people say, you know, well, man, you know, brother, we need to just get over this stuff. You know what I'm saying? We need to get over the past. But look, I want to ask you something here. And here it is that it's interesting that the European has, and this is what mind control is. He has such a power to define. So he can define a certain reality that he does, and it's acceptable. When you try to do the same thing, it's something different. Now this is the key. They tell you to get over the past. But yet, basically when this white man deals with you and deals with anybody in this society, if you really look at his system is comprised of keeping a record on your ass. You know what I'm saying? From the day you born to the day you die is a series of records. Right now, you 50, going to get some loan, and they done found some shit you did when you was 12. Now, how is it? But you say it's valid. You accept it as law. Might even accept it as being righteous. But how is it that this cracker constantly can keep a record on you
of the past?
Of the past, but yet you can't keep no record on his ass when he's been hostile to you 99.9% of the time your ass been here. See the form of mind control? Everything that he does is a damn record. From your credit, like I said, if you go to Radio Shack, you see what I'm saying? Like I think I was here the last time I told you, went to the cleaners, and the address that I was at before I moved showed up on the actual computer, and they say, McFarland, that's your girl or something. I said, how the hell you know that? She put some clothes in here 4 years ago. I'm like, what? Y'all tracking niggas down based on fucking cleaners? You see, so my point is everything, even this whole internet bullshit, is all based on a series of records. But you can't keep no records on him, or you racist. And the key here is looking at basically the form of mind control, whereas it's going to the point whereas he has the power to define. You see what I'm saying? And you think that his definition is valid. You see what I'm saying? You think his definition is valid. It's very key that you understand that also too. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this book because if you're going to get into the magic thing, a lot of the books that you see in a lot of the books you see, those ritual books that you see if you go to Barnes and Nobles or you go to Borders and all that stuff, you see a whole bunch of books on magic. The reason why the government put those things out is because they don't work. The reason why they don't work now is because those books, a lot of the spells was written thousands of years ago. And basically the energy and the time cycle has changed. So based on the time cycle being changed, a lot of that stuff don't work. The stuff that works is the stuff that you conjure up yourself because that's your own energy dealing with it. So there's a book called Your Book of Shadows, How to Write Your Own Magical Spells by Patricia Telesco, T-E-L-E-S-C-O, T-E-L-E-S-C-O, which basically, I've known this for the last 4 or 5 years, that basically any type of system that you want to see, you still want to deal with the magical aspect of this stuff, which is basically the scientific part. The best spells you do is the spells you make yourself. So then here's this book that they put out called Your Own Book of Shadows, which is dealing with that. See, even the word itself, the book of shadows. The shadow is your innermost